The Honourable Taylor Martin.
Mr Deputy President. Thank you, Mr Deputy President. For 106 years, the Cockle Creek Smelter operated in Lake Macquarie and provided for thousands of jobs and huge economic value to the Lake Macquarie and Hunter regions and New South Wales as a whole. During construction of the plant in 1896, when there were 600 men working on construction, the Sydney Morning Herald said that, notwithstanding its unpretentious appearance, Cockle Creek is now the scene of a large undertaking. The Cockle Creek Smelter was a significant contributor to both the World War I and World War II efforts. During this time, the plant produced, among many other things, materials to manufacture explosives. By 1974, the smelter had produced more than 1 million tonnes of lead and lead. The owner of the smelter at Pasminco went into administration in 2001, and a year later there were 320 people working at the plant, significantly reduced from its peak workforce of 800 in the 1980s. The plant was slated for closure by 2008, although external conditions resulted in this being brought forward, and the plant ceased operation in September 2003. Of course, given the nature of the activities at the smelter, significant remediation of the site was required. In 2003, the EPA issued a remediation order to Pasminco to remediate the site. The remediation works, including the construction of a containment cell for the excavated contaminated material, were approved in 2007. The containment cell has been completed and some land at the site has already been sold and developed, including an industrial park, a large Bunnings hardware and some residential development. The 2007 project approval required Pasminco to make provisions for the long-term environmental management of the containment cell. Pasminco has failed to make these provisions, and with no security over the future funding, the long-term environmental management of the containment cell is at risk. In 2018, it was announced that Pasminco's administrators were considering further land sales at the site, including possibly to IKEA, despite the stated intention being that the sale of the land would fund long-term environmental management. However, because of the unwillingness of Pasminco to engage in further negotiations with the former Department of Planning and Environment and the EPA over long-term funding for the environmental management, the government amended the State Environmental Planning Policy number 55, remediation of land. This ensured that no further subdivisions of the former smelter site could occur until adequate arrangements for the perpetual care of this cell, its associated infrastructure and the land zoned for environmental conservation were in place, reflecting the conditions of the 2007 approval. Thus, we were at an impasse. Pasminco wouldn't fund long-term environmental management without further land sales, and the government wouldn't put at risk the long-term environmental management of the containment cell and other land by allowing any further land sales without provisions by Pasminco. So here we are in 2019. The value of the land surrounding the containment cell, likely Pasminco's only remaining asset, is unlikely to exceed the cost into perpetuity of maintaining the containment cell and other associated infrastructure. It's expected that Pasminco will be placed into liquidation in the near future.
Order.
And in the absence...
It being 10 p.m, proceedings are now interrupted to permit the Minister to move the adjournment motion if so desired. That is a decline. The Honourable
Thank you, Minister.
Taylor Martin may continue.
In the absence of long-term funding from Pasminco, long-term management will likely fall to the New South Wales Government in any case. Soon after becoming a member of the Legislative Council, I was contacted by the General Manager at the Council, Morven Cameron, who wanted to show me the site and the potential that existed there. I stood on the side of the road as she showed me how this historical Lake Macquarie site could get a new lease of life. The Lake Macquarie smelter site, Perpetual Care of Land Bill 2019, will mean that the potential of this site will once again be a site of significant employment and economic activity in the region. This is a truly excellent outcome for Lake Macquarie itself. The Lake Macquarie smelter site, Perpetual Care of Land Bill 2019, ensures land at the site is properly managed in perpetuity. It protects the environment and the community, but also economically benefits Lake Macquarie and the Lower Hunter region as a whole. Mr Deputy President, I commend the bill to the House.
Thank you. Further speakers on this bill? The Minister in reply.